All right, the second great lesson, life comes to Earth. When the Earth was first formed, along with other planets and stars in our solar system, it was a hot, glowing ball of gases. Over millions of years, the ball of gases slowly cooled and different layers of the Earth formed. As gas cools, it can turn to liquid. Long ago, Earth was covered in liquid, red, hot rock called molten rock. Meteorites were crashing into the Earth. Volcanoes were spewing gases and red-hot lava. The Earth's sky had so many gases in it that the sky may not have looked blue as it does today, but reddish like the color of sunset. In those days, the Earth was still too hot for any plants or animals, but over even more millions of years, as the Earth's surface slowly cooled, a solid crust began to form over the liquid material. As the crust continued to cool, it wrinkled and cracked. Water below the Earth's surface escaped through the cracks. Water vapor formed above the Earth, and first clouds appeared. When the clouds first began to drop rain, the rain was still so hot that the raindrops quickly evaporated. But eventually, the Earth cooled enough that the rain stayed on the surface of the Earth. At one time long ago, the Earth was covered by a giant ocean. The water that remained on the surface of the Earth mixed with rock particles from the Earth's surface. Some scientists think that these particles made the first ocean a greenish color, like the color of green olives. In those early days, the giant ocean covered much of the Earth's land. The land that was not covered by ocean was all rock. Some scientists think that the rocky land may have been a reddish color like bricks or rust. The Earth's land at that time would have looked strange to people now because there were no trees, grasses, or flowers growing on it. Imagine a world with no plants. Another reason the Earth's land at that time would have looked strange is that there were no living animals on it. No frogs, dogs, spiders, snakes, elephants, or people. And because there were no people, there were no buildings or cars or any other inventions of people. Imagine the world with no people or animals of any kind. In fact, in the early days of the Earth, there was no life on land at all. Earth's land in those days was still very rocky, very red, very strange indeed. But deep in the Earth's giant ocean, something different and marvelous was happening. Somehow, and even today's cleverest scientists don't know exactly how, one tiny bit of matter came to life. This tiny bit of living matter was many, many, many times smaller than a speck of dust or even a grain of sand. This tiny bit of living matter was so tiny that it was invisible. In fact, to see this tiny bit of living matter, someone would need to look through a powerful microscope. But of course, there were no microscopes or people to look through them in these early days of the Earth. The tiny bit of living matter in the ocean was the Earth's very first life. It was a very small and simple kind of life because it had no legs or eyes or mouth. It had no leaves or stem or trunk. It was more like a little blob, but it was alive. Nowadays, there are millions and millions of these tiny life forms on Earth. They are called bacteria. The Earth's first bacteria was special because it miraculously found a way to live and multiply in the ocean, even though that first ocean was filled with many minerals and gases that would poison the life forms of today. So you guys, this is like zoomed in a lot, right? This is millions of times larger than what bacteria look like today.
Because it looks huge, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, so tiny, teeny, teeny, tiny.
Is it like putting a microscope under a microscope under a microscope?
Very powerful microscope.
Yeah, very
so
powerful
like
microscope.
that, yes.
Like
Yeah.
many microscopes combined together to make one powerful one.
Really advanced microscope technology. anybody, right?
Yeah.
For millions of years, there was only this one simple kind of life on Earth, bacteria. After a very long time, one particular group of blue-green bacteria, called blue-green algae, began to live in the shallow parts of the ocean where the light from the sun warmed the water quickly. In these warm, shallow waters, the blue-green algae found a way to keep a simple type of food for itself. The blue-green algae made this simple kind of food by making three things that surrounded it. Those three things were energy from the sun, water from the ocean, and carbon dioxide, a kind of gas that was plentiful in the air. Nowadays, this process of making nourishment from sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide is called photosynthesis, and plants do it all the time. As the blue-green algae produced food, it also began to create a new gas. Some of this new gas went right back into the ocean, but some of this new gas also went into the sky as it evaporated from the oceans. This gas became the start of what is now called the Earth's atmosphere, the blanket of air surrounding the surface of the Earth. The new gas was very special and important because it was the gas that all of Earth's future animals would need to breathe. This gas is called oxygen. Did you guys know that?
Yes.
Alright, so
So now you're going to demonstrate how it feels to breathe in oxygen. So I want you to put one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest, and I want you to feel through your chest and your belly, what it feels like to take a deep breath and then to let it out. So everybody, we can't see oxygen, can we? But you know it's real because you can feel it, can't you? Let's do it again. The rise and fall of your belly and chest makes you know there's oxygen in the air.
alright, so at this time, all of Earth's life was in the ocean. After bacteria developed, many other kinds of sea plants and sea creatures gradually appeared, such as seaweeds, sponges, sea lilies, jellyfish, worms, and more. These plants and animals were the only life in the ocean for a very long time. Then one day, a new and fascinating creature appeared in the ocean. This creature was unlike any life that had come before it. It had a head, a body, a tail, legs, and a hard shell on its back. It did not have bones. Instead, it had a hard outer layer like a suit of armor. This type of shell is called an exoskeleton, meaning that the hardest part of the creature's body was on the outside instead of the inside. This new and fascinating creature grew plentiful, and soon there were thousands of different types. Some had eyes and swam around. Some had no eyes and simply crawled around on the ocean floor. Some were only as big as the head of a pin. Some were as big as a kitchen sink. If the creature was in danger, it rolled up in a ball. This new and fascinating creature was an animal called the trilobite, and it was different from anything else on Earth. Because of that, the trilobite has become famous. So famous that the time when they existed nowadays is called the Age of Trilobites.
And here are 5 different examples of trilobite fossils. So now when the video is done, we're going to have you come up and look and see, and you can touch them and see the different trilobite fossils.
For texture.
Yeah, and you can feel the texture of them. So this is how we know that they were here on Earth.
Did these animals go extinct a while ago?
Well, we're gonna keep reading and we'll
I'm
probably
glad
do
you have
about that.
questions, Reese.
Alright, trilobites lived on Earth's ocean for a very long time. Then gradually they all died for reasons that nobody today really understands. Scientists say that when every single member of a certain type of animal dies, it is extinct. The trilobites became extinct. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did now.
Yeah. But if trilobites are extinct, how is it that people today know about them? Because trilobites left signs that they existed. When they died, trilobites' bodies became covered with layers of sand and rock. Over time, these layers of sand and rock became so heavy that the trilobites' body shapes were stamped or printed into the rock. The way your thumbprint might get stamped into a lump of modeling dough if pressed very hard. The shapes of plants and animals that are imprinted into very old rocks are called fossils. Over the years, people have enjoyed finding and studying fossils because fossils show what plants and animals from the past look like. Also, scientists can tell many things about the Earth's past by studying the fossils.
And again, you're gonna get to see these after our video, but there's different types of
Fossils.
printing trace fossils, and then actual parts of the animal would be a fossil also.
What's in there?
Alright, so you guys are all gonna get to do this, but we're gonna show you how this fossil is formed.
Okay.
Alright, so this modeling dough is like layers of the earth. So as the fossils were pressed into the layers of the earth, they left their imprint, which that's what these are examples of, is the imprint of these animals from long ago. So you can see that when we do that, we have an imprint there, just like the animals would have been pressed into the layers of the earth, right? Alright, for a long time in Earth's ocean, there were more trilobites than any other kind of life. But then a brand new kind of ocean animal arrived. This animal had a long body, but no legs. Its skin was very hard and scaly. It swam around the ocean easily because it had little flaps that helped it steer around and stop. And I'm going to stop right there because I want you to start thinking about what this next animal that was introduced into the ocean might be.